Welcome to the Mishmash Podcast. My name's McConaughey, here alongside Scott Moore, and for today's recording session, we'll be giving our thoughts on a wide variety of topics. With that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into it with our first topic. Although it isn't unheard of for video games to be difficult, and perhaps such a fact was even more prevalent in yesteryear, as of late, it does seem as though video games have a sharper edge, never mind the remastered version of the first Crash Bandicoot game. But also, Microsoft's fantastic Cuphead exclusive has been noted for its difficulty as well. The Dark Souls series, whether main entries or spiritual successors like Bloodborne, has been going strong for years. The question for this video's quick hit is whether a video game can be too difficult. Where do you draw that line, and how do you think game developers should tackle their approach? So first and foremost is, the reason that I decided in this topic in particular is because I thought that we'd both have a different back and forth here. I remember whenever I first experienced Dark Souls, I very much enjoyed it, and you had a lot more problems with it.
So I don't particularly like grinding in games, whether that be an MMO or an action classified as an action RPG, which I don't agree with.
It's technically Dark Souls is classified as a JRPG, which means Japanese role-playing game.
We won't get into that. Maybe we'll save that for another
episode.
But I don't really like grinding, which means I don't like doing the same thing over and over and over and over again. Now, the strategy aspect of Dark Souls, the second one, really it grasped my attention for all of about 45 minutes.
Something different about Dark Souls 2, though, is that they focused more on, it was still very difficult, but they focused more on speed, and it wasn't as much for grinding. Like, for instance, with enemies, you could only kill them a couple set of times before it stops respawning them, because it wants to get you through it and get you through continuing on in the game.
Right. So, I don't particularly like doing, again, the same thing over and over and over again. Now, Dark Souls 1, I actually beat Dark Souls 1.
Did you? I thought you were stuck on
I did
the twins.
I beat the twins. I didn't beat the very last boss. I did beat the twins, but I didn't. I cheated. I glitched into the wall, and they came at me, and I was able to win. But to be honest, I cheated on a lot of the bosses. There was a way to cheat on the hounds. Hounds of Hell, I guess.
Even the first boss battle, or one of the first boss battles, whenever it's on that bridge, I remember it was really easy just to get that guy to walk off the bridge to his death.
So there was ways around that, and finding those little strategies can sometimes be fun.
Yes,
they can. But whenever it comes to a game that you are just literally doing the same thing over and over and over again, and there is absolutely no way that you can progress forward without going all the way back, which is what I found myself doing a lot in Dark Souls, is I would be at a point to where I started at, point A, I went to point C, could not get past point C, had to travel all the way back to point A trying to mine souls so that way I can
and especially in the first Dark Souls when they didn't have the ability to warp between fireplaces or...
Oh, it was horrible. Yeah, it was too long. So once you play a grindy game like that, and so I played the first one, I tried to go back and I tried to play
Demon Souls?
Demon Souls. And I died like 10 times on the first boss, and I said, you know what? I don't think this game's for me. And I think mostly it was because I had just got done beating Dark Souls, and I remembered all of the gruesome hours that I put into that, and I didn't have any real payoff at the end.
You had your fill?
I had my fill. It was like eating a really bland meal for a very long time, and then getting really full of it and trying to eat a really bland dessert. And it just didn't work for me.
Well, I agree and I also disagree with you, is whenever I looked at Dark Souls is perfect, in my opinion. I absolutely loved it. But as it progressed with Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, eventually with Bloodborne, I found that it was getting diminished returns. Like, I was willing to put up with it. Like, the things that were frustrating me about Dark Souls, I was willing to put up with at that time because it was still new, and I still really liked the gameplay, the minimalist approach. I still liked it. And then as I started to play Dark Souls 2, 3, and so on, I started to really understand, or not understand it, but appreciate how frustrating it could be. And it isn't just things like difficulty in terms of like how difficult the boss is, but how punishingly inconvenient some of the things could be. Like with if there was like a a fire that was. I mean, you have to go to the boss battle, and you have to spend like 2 minutes just going through those hordes of enemies to traverse into the to where you can actually encounter the boss.
That was horribly frustrating. I was dead before I got there.
Yeah, and the thing is, you don't want to keep going through that over and over again because, especially towards the end, those enemies are still pretty difficult, and you're going to take some substantial
It's
hits.
like when I first started playing video games, and Sonic made me start over if I died. I didn't want to do that. That wasn't fun. That was horrible.
The thing is, I don't have a problem with difficulty per se. It's little things like that. Because a lot of people say, like with Dark Souls and so on, they say like it's difficult, but it's fair. And it doesn't really matter if it's fair. It matters if it feels fair. If I feel as though I am being treated right, because it's supposed to be a game at the end of the day. And if you are challenged, that's one thing. But if you're actually like frustrated and you don't want to play it, like when I played Cuphead, I was frustrated extremely. But at the end of the day, after I finished playing it, I loved it, and like I felt rewarded for having conquered it. But it's just the little things that, like even with Cuphead, I was things that bothered me that could have been done better.
So 90% of the games I play is not for the actual quote unquote gameplay of the game. It's for the story. I want to be told a good story, an exciting story, something that has background depth. I'm talking games like Oblivion, Skyrim, the Fallout series. Bethesda just does a really good job, but so does like CD Projekt Red with The Witcher 3. So those games are the games that I really like to play. In Dark Souls, Cuphead, those games really don't have a plethora of information that they're just throwing at you. It's if you want information in Dark Souls,
Yeah, there's a lore hidden
there
in
is,
there.
but you have to read cumbersome amounts of information. They don't give that to you.
I don't know. It's I said it earlier in a review I did for Bloodborne. It's what you make it. It's like an immersive kind of thing. It's your imagination that tells the story on those
Right, and
kinds of
I
games.
want somebody else's imagination. And that's what I play a game for. Is
But I
I
think that the
want
gameplay
to be put in.
gives you the baseline for that imagination use. It's as a role playing game, it will always it allows you to choose your adventure and make it what it is.
Well, it doesn't allow you to choose your adventure in the sense that it's linear and it makes you go
It's not
through a
necessarily
progression.
linear because there's a lot of different sections as a role
You
playing
don't
game.
really have a lot of choice in it. You don't get to choose your character. You don't get to choose
You do get to choose your character.
There's
You get
really
to choose
no-
between male or female. You get to choose your attire. You get to choose whether or not you are a class, or whether or not you're a thief. That's what I usually go with. You get to choose your attributes.
But there's really no choice in the direction that he goes. He's always going the same direction, no matter what. That's
optional boss battles
That's
and
okay, but you get optional, choices in games like God of War. I'm not going to call God of War an RPG. I could go around and collect in Uncharted and find little tokens.
but it's not linear either because it's like a giant, vast open world. Of course, it has an eventual end game, but almost every video game, even RPGs, has an eventual
But your
end
choices
game.
don't really matter. I mean, like if you kill a merchant over here, yeah, he doesn't respawn. That's an aspect of RPG.
That sucks
but
too.
It doesn't.
I
Didn't
remember
realize
I would see
that
like
he was.
merchants, and then I'd go like enemy and hit them.
That was the first playthrough in Dark Souls. I murdered the merchant. And then I was like, why can't I buy anything anywhere? Like, this is dumb. People are talking about going and buying stuff. And then I went back and I read a walkthrough and I was like, oh, I killed that guy. Like, I murdered him, didn't have anything. But I want a story, though. Like I was saying, I want a story. I almost want it to be spoon-fed to me. I want to be able to sit there, play my game, and I want the story spoon-fed to me. I don't want to have to dig through piles and piles of rubble to find this story that's really non-existent. It's not really a story so much as it is lore, and you don't really know why the world's like this, why you're the last person, but you get some lore about some of the characters, but not really a strong sense of character development. You have no idea who you are. You have no idea what is going on with you. You have no idea pretty much what you're doing this entire game. You're just like fighting these guys, and you're kind of like, I guess I'm fighting them because. And That's all. That's all I got. Is I'm
Yeah,
finding them because they're there.
I think that's pretty much where we end with this. Is you yourself, as you said, you'd say that you're more about the story or about the immersive aspects. I myself would say that I like a happy medium. As long as it's not inconvenient, I don't mind a certain amount of challenge. So I think that's pretty much where we land. But what we're asking for the Mishmash audience is where you land. And if you like this video, enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe and support the channel, and continue with us as we move on to our next topic.